Welcome to Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. I am David Reed, and I appreciate you joining me. Mark Nicholson, prop builder for Stargate SG-1, Atlantis Universe, the Ark of Truth, and Continuum, is joining me for this episode. This is a live stream, so if you have questions for Mark, go ahead and submit them to the YouTube live chat, where we are live on YouTube. So you can chat with our moderators. And meanwhile, I'm going to catch up with this man. Mark Nicholson, prop builder. How are you, sir?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me here. It is a pleasure to have you. I have many of your toys in my possession. I saw a comment that you made on one of my videos saying that you watched them. So you probably have an idea of some of the things that I'm going to present to you today. That's some of the more portable stuff. And it's a pleasure to talk with one of the builders of these things. How many of you were there? What was your place among this group? And tell me let's back up first. What was your function on Stargate? What did you do day to day?
Okay, so day to day, we were building props. We were in a warehouse, place with no windows. Things leave and go to set. I maybe got down to the Bridge Studios 5 times in 5 years. So
Wow.
what I do is mostly just like I get a drawing and I turn it into a real thing and it leaves the door and I never see it again.
Wow. Were you guys at
So
Norco?
that was across the street.
Oh, so there was a different facility.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. I thought, well, that makes sense that you guys wouldn't have a production space on site at Bridge Studios because that was mostly for filming and administrative.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
so there was the Norco building across the street, which the first year I was there, season 10/3
Yeah.
was still Stargate sets. So I think there was a gold shuttle and then the Ori ship sets in there.
Yep.
And then our building across the street from it, we had the model shop where I worked. And then there was a set decoration shop in the next section over. And then there was the construction area, which was much larger for building sets.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
so they were building walls and large structures and moving them, and they'd truck them all down to the bridge, which is about 15 minutes away.
So Bridge Studios was a 15-minute drive. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then the Norco building, I think later the TV show Sanctuary, which was made by a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ex-Stargate people, they took that over. And so it was a lot of friends across the street, and they'd come and talk, and we'd make stuff for them occasionally too.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you guys are a resource that they know what you've got and what you're capable of, and if they want something, they can get it. The amazing thing, Martin Garrow once told me this,
Yeah,
and I'm sure James Robbins never got over it either, but Martin never got over the fact that he could write something, and within a matter of days or weeks, he could hold it in his hand.
yeah,
You would never get over that. I mean, it's just like anything that comes out of here, within reason, it's either
yeah.
going to be a
Like
visual effect or I can will it into reality like God. You just need a production cycle.
yeah, there's a lot of people involved in making that happen and a lot of talent. Um, Back to your other question though, there was about 10 or 15 of us, depending on the year or the time. It changed because I was there for 5 years. Um, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. It
Wow.
wasn't what I planned to do.
Okay.
This was a job I lucked into.
Tell me about that.
Um, so uh, as a young kid, even really got into 3D animation. Like that was that was a thing I saw and was like, I want to go do this. This is cool. I got my hands on software for it at a very young age, did a bunch of it, and went, yeah, this is really what I want to do. Went to school for that. Got a job at a game studio. Was making a game. 2 months later, they canceled the project and let a
Boy,
bunch
have
of
I
people
been
go.
there. I've been there with Stargate Worlds. Yep.
Yeah. So did that. And then I'm looking for work again. And my school contacts me and they're like, hey, we're looking, someone contact us. Like they're looking for work, someone 3D modeling. And I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll go find out what it is. And the model shop they'd gotten a tool for 3D scanning people, and they were trying to build out some capability to do that.
Humans.
Yeah, people, but also like other things because they were doing a lot of really cool technology stuff. Um, and I'll continue to talk more about that in a moment. But they were just like, hey, we need someone who can 3D model. Also, wait, you've done like woodworking in shops before and worked in welding shops and know how to fabricate things a little bit. Cool. We're also super busy. We could even just use someone to sweep floors.
Ah,
Just this was going to be a part-time thing, but like, you know
yeah.
what? Forget it. Just come in next week.
So is
Which is
this the
sometimes
beginning
how
of
things
Atlantis season 3, SG-1, season
season
10?
10.
Okay.
So, yeah, I just I started working and um they were really busy that season, so there was tons of work and it went really well. They were getting me to do a few things to figure out what I could do and also just like there was so much that just needed doing. And then about a month or 2 months later, they had ordered in months ago and finally got in a laser engraver, and they were not even sure what they were going to do with it. So they're like, "Hey, go figure this thing out." So I did, and what we figured out was we could do so much with it, and it was so powerful for doing exactly what Martin Jarrow said, turning an idea into a thing you could hold in your hand in very short amounts of time. Yeah, you see that rubber on the back of the handle?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that'd take about 30 seconds to cut out, and I could make
Wow.
as many of them as I wanted.
Did you cut this with it, or was this with another, like a milling machine?
That was done with a milling machine, but the
Okay.
little acrylic
Yep.
shiny sections on there and that back handle thing, yeah, I did those with a laser cutter. That was that season.
And I haven't changed the batteries, Mark.
Neat.
Can you believe that?
Uh, I honestly don't know what the batteries are in that, so I don't know.
It's a very unusual type. I could look it up and share it with everybody, but it would bore 90% of them. But the magnets, I mean, this thing
That's
has so much heft. It's just mind blowing. So for a long time, I thought that this was it's aluminum.
yeah.
I thought it was etched with water, but I think I was mistaken. I think it was made by some other means. Do you want to talk a little bit about that for some use the replicator stunner as a case
I
study?
I don't recall what it was
Okay.
painted with. Again, one of the things is we also had a pretty good division of capabilities, so we had a full-time painter the whole time.
Wow.
So his job is just to paint. It changed at one point from one painter to another.
Well, there's definitely
And
no
it,
paint, but like the milling, like how they produced it. So like the machine that probably kicked this out would have had to have been some kind of industrial site because the
oh, is it? It's a big milling machine.
wow.
It was a Haas CNC machine, four
Wow.
axis.
My
It had like a
goodness.
40 by 20-inch plate, so it could do really big stuff.
That's
Um,
crazy.
it's
Absolutely.
it's the size of a large car.
My gosh.
Like,
I bet not anymore.
uh,
I bet depending on what you
no,
need from it, probably. So,
I'm pretty sure I know exactly where that same machine is right now because some of the people who worked on that are still going.
wow.
I talked to one of them late last year, early this year,
Okay.
because one of the interesting things about this is because like Joe Mallozzi
Yeah.
did his blog,
Yeah.
talking to people who worked on the show, I did a Q&A with him, but I also left contact information, which means now prop collectors start sending me messages.
Really?
Yeah. So I've formed a friendship with one of them. I've met him a couple times whenever he's come into town. A handful of them, like just over the years, people keep contacting me with stuff because I'm the only person who anyone can reach
Yeah.
on who knows something about these things. So, they're like, "Hey, I got this prop finally because it took years to finally get it over here. What can you tell me about it? How do I access this? What were the lights?" And I'm like, sometimes I don't know any question answers. Sometimes someone will ask me a crazy question and I don't know every answer except maybe the one they want.
Yeah, you were a part of a
Um,
team. over years and years. And
Yes.
you were a part of the last iteration of that team.
Yes.
Wow. It's just
Um,
nuts.
I got one comment from an email that continues to delight me every time I read it. It was from a Virtual Boy forum, like the old Nintendo console, and they were like, "Is that chip that Merrick holds up in the Ark of Truth and puts it like right up to the camera? Is that like one of the sensor or like the a graphics chip from the side of a Virtual Boy? Like that looks like the same thing." And they're like, "Hey, what is this?" And I'm like, "Huh, yeah, I made that. Uh, here's everything I can remember. Go ahead and post it back on the forum. Have fun, guys."
Let me pull this thing up here while I'm
I'll-
thinking
I'll-
about it. I've got it.
oh, you found it?
Of course, you sent it to me,
Good.
thankfully, but my internet is suddenly having issues. Maybe I do need that AT&T guy we were
Yeah, there
talking
it
about.
is.
So,
Yeah.
I always assumed that it was the inside, the innards of an SD card, because
No.
it's about the dimensions, and that would make sense because you guys often, especially with the Wraith stuff, with USB, you had a Wraith device that was a claw on one end and a human USB on the other.
I made a bunch of USB to something connectors. I think that about 4 or 5 of them, and it became a joke by the end.
Wow.
Like internally, we're like USB to what now? Okay, sure.
Yeah.
No, that chip's actually a little larger than an SD card.
Okay.
Um, and what it was because you always build one of something. So I needed 2 of a
Because
chip.
one is none.
Yes. Because if
Wow.
something happens to anything on set, you don't want to stop filming to, make a thing. You always have a second one ready. Um, so I literally pulled up a parts bin full of chips and was like, where can I find 2 of it? Found 2? Cool. Let's go build it with that. That was it. That was my whole process for picking that chip. And it was like about the right size.
Wow. Then how did you know it was a Virtual Boy piece if it came from a bin full of chips?
They found that out.
They
And I'm
found it
like,
out.
they're like, here's the picture. I looked at it and I'm like, probably. Because my guess is someone took a Virtual Boy because they wanted the shell for some other thing,
Yeah.
tossed all the innards into a bin, and this is years later, and I have no idea what happened other than that.
Okay.
Like, it could be anything.
It was probably a Virtual Boy used in production somewhere for some goggles or something. So
But it might not have even been this show. Like, that bin might have
yeah.
come from anywhere. Because the Virtual Boy was like 10 years old at that point. Who knows where it came from?
Yeah, really old. Yeah, early 90s. So I owned one and I saw that and it didn't even occur to me. So that's pretty
I looked
awesome.
at it and I'm like, how would you know unless you really cared about Virtual Boys? So,
Right.
this was super cool. It made my day. It still makes my day reading it. It's so much fun to be able to connect these weird dots in these things that we all care about.
Was there any specialty that you had that the others didn't so that they came to you for X, Y, or Z? Or was there within the group of you a smaller group of which you were a part? Because you mentioned you were a 3D artist, so you were making CAD files.
Yes, a little less because I was mostly doing like game ready 3D, like polygon modeling, as opposed to parametric surface modeling. They're a little different. So I've done a bit of both, but one of them is just dots and lines,
Okay,
and the other is math.
I see. Okay.
So parametric surface modeling is like, hi, I've created a shape and it's all math driven, so I can actually undo this math, like uh, cutting a circle through it with like it's this dimension, and I can change it on the fly.
That sounds like
As a
that's your thing.
No, that's the other
No.
one. I love it, but most of what I do now is games, so
Okay.
it's all the other kind.
Okay.
Tools are getting better for mixing both, but so I did that, but also that laser engraver turned into my full-time job real quick
Man, oh
because we were
man.
just like, the chip that thing came out of, yeah, I cut that too, and it was like, we just need someone who can draw this stuff all the time and make these shapes and do this stuff and figure out how this machine works because it's a bit finicky. And it's like, yeah, no, you get to a point where it's like, oh, I can pick up a piece of black ABS plastic, and I can be like, oh yeah, I can tell how much rubber is in the mix for this and whether it's going to cut well or not just by looking at it. Yeah.
I think this is another piece of the Asgard core right here. I'm pretty positive.
See,
Because they all
I,
had a uniform kind of design for every individual thing.
and the other thing is there's the stuff that's pre-laser cut, um, versus which was done like they would like etch in with a router table,
Right.
and then they would like bandsaw the edges and then flame polish them, and it took them hours and hours and hours.
Like all of the Earth spaceship stuff from Prometheus to, well, we didn't see Sun Tzu, but Hammond, you have these huge pieces of plexi. And
Yeah.
there are, I'm assuming, CNC etchings on them. And then they light the edges, which make the etchings glow. And so
Yep.
that's where you're getting that effect because was it halogen bulbs? It was just like
Uh,
ceiling bulbs that they would put in on the sides and then shoot them at the thin layer, and it would light up it like all the way through.
yeah.
So that's what's happening here. That's why these become
Oh
beautiful
wow.
when you put a light underneath them. So look at this one.
I definitely remember making that one.
Yeah. So it's as long as there's a uniform light, and these cameras are not the best for this. I can't even remember what this one plugged into. But if you look carefully through the show, you can see all of them. One of the classic ones is this one right here.
Whereas that looks like that was done with a router table and then has a graphic printed and applied to
Yep.
it,
Yep.
which was pre my time.
Yep. Because do you know where this came from? Do you know where this prop was?
No.
These were from the puddle jumper.
Okay.
Yeah. So this would have been 2000. 4.
Four? Yeah.
2004. Yeah.
I know who made that. Like I know exactly who made that, how it was done, what was going
Yeah.
on. We tended to transition to what I was doing because it was faster and cheaper.
I
Um,
see. And there were no stickers involved like
yeah.
these. So
Um,
this has
oh no,
also got a holographic sticker
I
on it.
did some with stickers.
Okay.
Um the episode in season 10 where they go through the gate and they find out that the DHD on the other end is actually a museum replica and they're in
Bad
a
guys.
museum. Bad guys. One of my favorite episodes. The little pass keys in that are ones where I actually did um like a vinyl cut. And so it was
Uh-huh.
like a metallic vinyl in gold and silver and then I cut those out
Wow.
for those ones. But I have a picture that I sent you of the Ori chair
Yes,
that
we're
is a
going to cover
great
it.
example of the LED side lighting. That was one of the first ones where we laser cut it and saw that and we were like, oh no, this is super cool. We got to do more of this. So those are all like they're side lit with LEDs inside the chair, and then
My, oh
some of those
my.
pieces are all heat bent, that thing looked amazing when you lit it up. It was so cool, and this picture doesn't quite do it justice.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. There's only so much information that you can get on unless you're pointing it at a really high resolution camera or a high
And
resolution camera at it. Just
and
amazing
that one,
stuff.
yeah, it was super cool. But that was really the first thing we made because it was early that season where we saw this and we're like, this looks rad, and everyone like all the way up was like, no, this looks cool. We should do this more.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I've got a whole bag of these things. I mean, just all kinds of different configurations and anything that you could imagine. And most of them are like the same depth, but like some of them are even thinner. Like I can never stand this one up. But crystal technology is such an integral component of ancient tech and all of their cousins. So I mean, you go back further along, earlier into SG-1. These clear pieces are our technology. These are the ones that somehow we've managed to fabricate and manufacture. But you go further back, and the colored ones, the gold, have been using them, for a really
well,
long time.
the,
So
the funny thing is part of that is like the actual advances in literal technology that allowed us to build different
right.
props. 3D printing was another thing we were on the forefront of. We were doing that in 2007,
Wow.
and it was like that was an expensive printer. And we started trying to figure out what we could do with it. Um, and again, that was where a lot of my modeling skills would come in, and I'd be like, oh yeah, we can just go build this and that and
Mm-hmm.
make stuff.
But
But yeah, so the laser engraver ended up being a large part of what I did all the time.
man,
So making chips, making crystals, making masks for painting, um, all sorts of stuff. Like we prototyped a thing for etching circuit boards where he would just give me the electronics designer would give me a file so we I could cut out the pieces in a sheet of mylar. He'd put the mylar on the thing, put the solder paste on top, pull it off, drop all the chips in, just put it in the light oven, solder everything done, which is a technology that's like absolutely common now.
that's just
Um,
nuts.
but it was like we could do that, and he could hand it to me, and I'd have it back to him, and like it'd take 2 minutes to cut and another 10 minutes to like clean all the bits and pieces out. And so it was just like it was so fast and so easy.
What?
Someone would come and be like, I need a disc out of plastic and I need it to be 3 inches on the outside and 1 inch on the inside. And I'd be like, okay, cool, here you go. Like I'd do it while he was standing there.
What materials did you guys have to work with? Aluminum, plexiglass? What
Yeah,
did you
like
keep in
acrylic,
stock or
uh,
acrylic?
acrylic, because the names are actually really important because we could cut acrylic. So like half inch to and lower acrylic. Half inch acrylic was a little hard on the laser cutter, but we could do it. Um, a lot of the wood stuff was a high quality birch that they always kept in stock because it was like free of knots and really easy to work with. So the birch was the wood we were using all the time. ABS, which is a specific kind of plastic. uh, Most people will know it from like it's kind of like the Lego brick stuff or what we'd 3D print things with. So we always had that in stock. We had a few other things, but the problem is some materials don't laser cut well because you're burning it. So like neoprene, we discovered cuts beautifully. Also releases highly acidic toxic gas that
It's
you should
not
never
good to
be
breathe.
it's not good for metallic things either. So it was
Wow.
like, let's try it. Oh, wait, no, we just found out, yeah, this is really bad. We should never do this again. It cut beautifully though. It was like, someone could probably figure out a way to do it, but not without a lot of scary safety stuff. So,
Was there anything that
um,
you had to cut with special masks? You know?
oh, we had you have a picture of my workspace there with the if you load it up, you can see that there's a cage on the left there with the blue machine down there. That's the laser cutter.
Blue machine, blue machine, blue. Oh, here,
The
out. Oh,
very
in here. Oh,
yeah, that
this thing.
yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it's in its own room so that the air isn't getting out because like even with its own ventilation, it was enough, and there was a little fume hood up at the top as well. So no, it was never a good room to be in. I laser cut leather, which smells like burnt flesh or hair, so that's fun.
Wow.
Um, doing that for 3 days straight is that was interesting.
But it was Mark.
No, yeah. Look, and Baal's costume from Continuum, where he's got like the black with all the little holes all through it.
The pieces all the
That
way down.
it looked great, so it was worth it, I guess. Um, Laser cutting rubber was really problematic, uh, but we could do it. It would just be a lot of work. It would smell awful, and it'd be a lot of extra work afterwards to try and clean it up.
Hmm.
And obviously, like anything like wood, like you get charred edges, so you got to clean it before you want to handle it because it's ash. Like it's not good for you.
Right, exactly.
This stuff's not nice to work with. It was one of the reasons why I'm like, I don't really want to continue prop building. It's a really toxic environment.
Literally.
Yeah.
How often would you be working with Valerie Halverson,
Oh,
the costume
um,
designer, for people not in the know?
uh, I worked with Val on that specific ball costume, and I think I saw her a handful of other times.
Oh, and that was it. Okay.
Yeah, no, like James Robbins, the art director, we'd see him once a year. Like the
Wow.
our lead would go to set, or like he'd go down to the bridge for meetings every day or two all the
Yeah.
time.
So Evil
The
Kenny.
rest, um, Kenny and Gord would always be
Oh,
going
Gord
down for
Bellamy.
meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, Gord Bellamy would be going down for meetings. Kenny would come and see us all the time. So, seeing Kenny, he'd be there at least every week. But like James coming over to the shop, no, almost never happened. We'd see him once a year. Um, so Val coming to the shop was rare. And then figured out a little while later that her brother-in-law was my old math teacher in high school. And
Vancouver was a small town then.
no, it really wasn't, because it
No?
was like that was in a suburb of Abbotsford, way out where I grew up. And her and her sister are nothing alike. It,
Wow.
it's very funny. Um,
Keep on bumping into people. It's so
yeah,
amazing.
I bump into people all the time. I don't even think about it anymore. I that is it.
Is a memory coming up?
Yeah, not very strongly, which is why it's weird, because I'm like, I think I've seen this before, but wow, I definitely haven't seen this in
Hmm.
what is now 20 years.
See if anyone in the chat gets it. I'm curious.
And this is actually the biggest problem with every talking about it all now, is like,
I
I've
mean,
forgotten more than I remember.
the thing about this is you've got this piece on the top that it's got layers in it. So as the light hits it differently, different pieces of the orange glow through. And you've got the text on the side here, and then you've got a different material on the bottom, which is actually not aged well. It's become really sticky. There's like an adhesive on the outside of this. For some reason, there was never anything there, but it's just deteriorated. Maintaining so much of this stuff, because oxygen deteriorates. I don't have a nitrogen cabinet to keep some of this stuff. But there's so much that's involved there. Janai grenade, no, Anthony. The Janai grenade is here. No, it's not a Janai grenade. It's a Wraith grenade. Never mind. So this is a Wraith grenade, and that was made in 2004.
So
It is.
show me the bottom of that thing,
Yeah.
because some memories are coming back. Yeah, I think that bit that goes across was a laser cut plastic piece that we glued on or something.
Oh, really? This whole
Yeah.
thing, the milling behind this is just absolutely nuts. So it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like anyone's got it. This was the unnamed alien races grenade from Daedalus Variations. He rolls it onto the floor, and then it goes boom. So the big white creatures with the red light in their face, and
Oh, yeah, yeah, those guys.
exactly.
I remember
They
this
made the
now.
comics about them.
So this is the thing, is like that, or something like that, is a great example of like how much time I spend with things like this.
Mm-hmm.
Someone would go, "Hey, we've got this thing. We're halfway through. Can you make this one bit for us?" And I'm like, "Okay, cool." I make it that day. We put it on maybe the next day, the third day, it's gone. And I'm working on 6 other things at the same time. So it's like, how do I
Oh,
remember
you
these
mean it's in
things?
storage? Yeah.
Well, no, it would go to set, and then it would go in storage, and
Right.
I'd never see it again.
Yeah.
Um, and so like there were some props where it'd be like you'd see it for a few minutes and then it'd be gone forever.
That makes a lot of
And
sense.
and that was actually one of the reasons why I started being intentional about taking photos of things, because we were like, no one had a record of everything we were building, and I was like, why? You're gonna need
That's
this.
right. That's right.
Um,
The production
so
department, yeah, especially the drafts people who were building all the sets, they had reference material for everything they created before they struck it, because you couldn't store it. There were no Tupperware containers for that, and you guys were Tupperware City when PropWorks moved in with my team to take everything away. And
yeah.
like a lot of the larger stuff, we just couldn't move it. I was like, that's
Oh yeah.
Thor's biopod from Nemesis, and my boss was like, it won't sell, and he was right. We took a couple of pieces and larger pieces, and they went for nothing, because crating them was hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars to ship to
Yep.
the customer. It wasn't worth it.
Or also building a crate for them. A great example of that, the staff weapon.
Hmm.
Y Everyone knows what it is. There was only ever one that actually did the mechanical opening and closing. And for the entire run of the show, that was only ever a front half.
Mm-hmm.
There was never a full staff weapon that did that. But then after SG-1 wrapped, we were still working on the other stuff, but they were like, MGM calls up and they're like, we want the working staff weapon that opens and closes the whole thing. And that doesn't exist. And they're like, build it. So we put it together with a
Wow.
back.
Was this
And
before the movies or after them?
probably around the same time.
Okay. Because I've seen that
Um,
one. It was sold to a private customer.
they
So
sold it?
the head, it would,
Yeah.
that was never screen used?
No. That was just MGM wanted one, like to put in their office.
Maybe it's
I'm
a different
surprised.
one then. We sold one that was full length, not the sewed-in ones that I have here.
Yeah.
Where the end mechanically opened and closed, and we stored the battery in the bottom where the liquid Naquita cell was supposed to be. That purple thing, you would
Yep.
pop it off, and the batteries were in that. So
No,
if
there
you
was only ever
made
one of those.
then we sold it. MGM didn't take it, and it was in a custom box.
Weird. Yes, it wasn't a custom box. I remember how long it took to build the custom box for it.
You and I have a
But
lot
no,
of text messages to exchange in the future, sir. So there's a lot
we will
there.
do that.
Yes.
Oh yeah. And this is why, like, I've talked to a bunch of prop builders or like prop collectors, and they're always like, I got this, or it's in this way. And it's like,
It's never screen used, and I know who has it. I can talk to them. Interesting.
but no, that thing was together for like we got it working, and the amount of time between getting it done and putting it in the crate was half an hour. And then we put it in the crate, never to see it again.
What, you assembled
Um,
that staff weapon in half an hour?
no. I'm saying the time between finishing assembly and crating it to never see it
Oh,
again was only half an hour.
wow. I understand.
Like we finished putting it together and we shipped it off forever. But the cool part was I had some family come to. They were out of town and they came in to visit. And they came in to have a tour of the shop right in that half hour so they could see it working.
Aw, that's cool. Were they fans of the show?
Yeah,
So it meant something to them.
yeah. They knew what it was, and it was just like, and I'm like, this didn't exist half an hour ago, and it will never be in town again. It's getting like my understanding was it was going to get shipped down to LA.
And there was
So
it was not. We took it. Sorry, everyone. I don't know why, but my hotkeys are doing that. But I'm trying to pull up. I wanna see if you and I can dispel a couple of myths together.
rad.
And I don't think I'm gonna say so much of like a huge majority of the Stargate prop images online are images that my team took. Like all of these on the white, my team took all of these. This was one of the staffs here, Matak. That comes from the movie. That term has never been used in any dialogue here. This was one of the ones we got a huge stack of them from Bridge, where this was leaning up against the wall in this direction, and so you can tell the core inside of it the heat made it bend this way, and so you've got a diagonal kind of swoosh now. But
I
yeah.
remember seeing some of those. I remember like seeing the bent ones.
Yep. So my understanding was for a long time, because you weren't here, so you may not be able to tell, but for a long time in most of the seasons early on, when the staff weapon opened, it was actually a visual effects shot.
Yeah.
So it wasn't done mechanically in any way.
The people who designed the opening and closing on it, they started on season 4 or 5.
Okay. So anything before that for a staff weapon, because the big cannon that's been used since season 1, that actually did the open and close, the cannon that you could position and move. We sold that one as well, and that had a lever that we twisted, and the four ends of it would open and shut. But I guess this was so small, and so here, so this is the butt end of the butt end of it. So that's where the liquid
So
Naquita
I
was
might be
stored.
wrong, and someone made a working one before that.
Okay.
But I know the people who designed that opening and closing mechanism only started on season 4 or 5.
I'll ask Kenny.
So Kenny might know. I mean, I can go. The person who designed it was someone I was talking to earlier this year. I don't want to name them because
Of
they've
course.
never expressed an interest in it, so I'm being polite.
Of course. Well, you and
Hey,
I can gossip
everyone,
offline.
by the way, all the people who don't do interviews and talk about this, they don't want to do interviews and talk about this. Don't worry about it. If you really want to know, I'm okay to be an intermediary for it. I've done it before. If you have questions, you can find me and ask me. I don't mind.
Yeah,
Um,
we're going to share his information. So his website is confracto.com, CONFRACTO.com. And we're going to get into some of your other work here at some point in the discussion. But there was another staff weapon. I think it was just designed for concept. And production took a look at it and went, no. It was, it was two ends of the front. And of the top here, and then this middle piece here, and then on the other side, and it was only 4.5, 5 feet long. And they're like, no, that's not what we want. So we sold that at PropWorks. It's actually in our catalog as a concept. Like I mentioned, we've never seen this on screen. Not any work that I could find. But we sold it because it was cool. And we found it hanging above the shop on fishing wire. So,
and sometimes the other aspect of that is like sometimes we plan things and then they don't turn into a real thing.
Yep.
You build stuff and then they're like, oh no, we're not doing that. And then, the frustrating and sad aspect is like sometimes you spend like 2 weeks building a cool thing and then they're like, no, axe it. And then it's a busy shop. You don't have time to clean it up. So it's sitting there reminding you that you don't get to build this cool thing for weeks before you'll get even time to clean that space.
And then that's it. Then it's all over with.
Which is sometimes sad and crushing. And it's just like, I cared about that thing. That was a lot of fun.
Well, that's it. Do you remember this guy?
Yes, I do.
So who turned him into a Jaffa? Whose idea was this? Because this confounded us forever, Mark. This is actually, this is from a video that someone has screen capped my video and gone out of their way to make a leaf symbol for him. That's what was really tripping us up, because we're like, okay, why would someone go to this much trouble unless they were A, making it for a production meeting that was never used, or B, just effing around? Was that you?
It was just effing around.
Did you do that?
I was not the instigator of that, but I remember it happening. I don't remember whether I made that leaf or whether someone else made the leaf, but I remember that
because someone had to design it.
Oh, it was just something someone whipped up in a couple minutes. Like this was all very effortless, and it was like, oh, we want to display things. Because we had a room at the front where there's some display stuff. I have a picture of a few of the things.
Yeah, including the tentacled ancient drone weapons.
Yes, that thing was that thing was kind of wonky.
It was on some kind of a pedestal underneath. It was
it was just on like a hanger, so it could hang because it was all floppy and wobbly. It was not something you could just put down on the ground without it getting damaged in some way.
That's the thing.
But no, that was just done as a lark.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel so much better here. I'm trying to pull him up.
Do you see the smile on my face? That's the smile everyone had when we put this together. Like, it was just like, this is so goofy and fun.
So this belt is a Wraith belt from Defiant 1. That's that material. And then he's got Jaffa gauntlets and a Jaffa knife. And we kept them together as best we could. We weren't going to pull them apart because they'd obviously made some kind of a mannequin or a PVC pipe kind of reinforced thing underneath for him. And we have some other Furling stuff that we'll show in a little bit that you sent me.
No, there
that was
is
basically it.
There's a foam mannequin under there that we
Wow.
built for, like, we actually scanned these people so we could build the rest of the suit around them. I remember this now. Again, this is almost 20 years ago.
Man, that's just
so
nuts.
They were just like, oh yeah, no, we're gonna put them all in the thing, and then, like, I think I know who started it, but yeah, it was just done for fun. I'm surprised. I'm actually a little shocked that like years later it was still together.
We were careful.
But yeah, but like it never got.
We only sold it in 2011.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Is like it went 5 years with no one pulling that apart.
It's true. That's true.
And that's what surprises me is like at no point during the rest of the show were all those Jaffa pieces needed for anything where they would have just been like, oh yeah, pull it apart, let's go.
Well, so much of Continuum was so much of the Jaffa stuff for Continuum was brand new. I sold generations of Jaffa armor going back to Children of the Gods. I had pieces with the actors' names on the inside of the stunt people, and it was from 1997. And we just combined suit after suit after suit, and we had a leftover thing of pieces at the end. None of these things are like the other, because we only had everything was reiterated as they went forward, and they made new stuff. And as far as Continuum went, and but it was pretty extraordinary that the collection of items that you guys accumulated over 17 television seasons. Just madness, man.
Well, some of it degrades,
Sure.
and again, over 10 years, like the number of things I repaired because they were made with materials that just don't last, or
like baby monitors.
Yeah.
Your worst nightmare? A terrible example of a prop?
God, that thing. Everyone working on it is just like, this thing's so dumb.
So the top was a Janai. This here was built. I'm pretty sure this was made or taken from something else that was made for Underground in season 1. But the back is a baby monitor, and I assume in Janai parlance, it's a battery pack and a range extender because they were talking through the Stargate to their planet. But it's a painted baby monitor. That's it.
Yes. Yep. And no, none of us who are building these things like it when we have to do stuff like that. But it happens. There was like the communicator in Phantom Menace is just like a lady's razor with a few bits and bobs on it. On screen at distance, it looks fine.
That's
like
it.
Sometimes you just build things because it works. And that's the budget and time you get.
Absolutely. I want to start getting to some fan questions right now, and then move into the slideshow piece in a little bit here. But one of the things that kind of perked my ears.
You've gone robot voice.
Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me okay now?
Better. I still see warning signs on your little icon in the corner.
Oh, really? I apologize. I hope that I don't think my guy here is testing my internet connection yet. But can you hear me okay now?
No, you're still a little bad. It's
really you're coming through.
The feed I'm getting is also the feed I'm getting of the video from you is also like, okay, it's getting better now. Oh, my internet connection's unstable.
Is it?
Well, let me try turning off my VPN to see if that helps.
Oh, VPN. Okay. You may wink out.
Testing. Still here?
You're still here.
Great. Never mind.
You said earlier something along the lines of we try not to, or we don't want to have to make something in the middle of production. Was there ever a point where production was going and they said, oh my God, Mark, we need this now?
Oh, all the time.
What do you remember?
Like constantly. Hold up any of those chips you had. Just pick one.
Okay.
Like, yeah. So, no, any of the ones that don't have the printed stuff that
Mark,
come on, gotta get the right ones. It's okay. So that stuff.
Okay.
You see, yeah, like I'm pretty sure with both of those ones, there's an actual example of something that happened. Because what happens with small props like that on set with a whole bunch of people is they are smaller than someone's pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. And pockets have holes.
Yep.
And stuff walks. Stuff disappears.
Yeah. I can see that ZPM on your shelf there that I think they only ever made 3 of.
Oh, the full ones? The battery powered ones?
Yeah.
By the end? Because those were replaced by air piston ones earlier. Yeah.
No. The big the on the other side of you, the big orange crystal thing.
Oh, the 0-point modules.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think they made 3, and by the end we only had 1.
Which is why we only sold 1. We only had 1 of the fully contained ones, And we had one or two that had the cable run through it so you could dial the intensity as it was, dying. And
Yeah,
then we had a couple of breakable ones with the candy glass, at least one. The others walked, and we don't know what happened to them, but we knew they were
we
there.
we don't know what happened to them. They were gone before I got there. Like
Wow.
really important props that went missing early on.
Man, oh man. Yeah, the only one that I
Um,
do have was the one that Rodney receives at the beginning of Siege Part 3. Your ZPM, sir. And with the crate, you open it up, ZPM unit, and you pull it out. That whole self-contained piece we sold. Man, I
yeah,
wanted to hang on to it and buy it for myself, but I couldn't.
yeah.
I wanted a fan to get it. That was the frustrating part about my job was that so much of this stuff came through, and I'm kind of like the drug dealer and addict at the same time. So I did set aside like things for myself here that we had 8 of them. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to set one aside for myself. And then we
You
would watch what it went for, and then I would pay that. So, but
No, I remember at the like on the last season also looking at some of the prop works auctions and seeing what things went for and being shocked at what was way like how far off the prices were from what it actually cost to create them or how much work went into them because how much work goes into it is actually the cost. Like
that's
you're paying
correct.
people's hours.
Yeah, the let's actually get to one of those as a case study because I've got an example that we can overlap and talk about here. And where did it go? It's a universe question. Okay. Anthony, were you involved in the ideas and designs for the ancient spacesuits that were used in first in Atlantis as the Vanir, the Asgard, evil Asgard, in season 5?
Yes, I
Okay.
was.
And what can you remember about it? Because according to Joseph Mallozzi, he said it was $100,000 per suit for R&D. And John Lennox confirmed, yes, and we had 3 of them, so it was $300,000 to develop those things. 30 different pieces that all came together, one of which I still have. Well, it's not technically the suit, but it was part of the suit because it had attachments here for it. So
Do you still have a good glow stick in there?
I have a bad glow stick. But yeah,
Yeah.
you guys designed it to fit glow sticks, which was brilliant.
Because that was the hacky thing that came up at the time.
That's it. You make it work.
Yep.
You know, tell us about that.
That was one of the biggest, at that point, that was the biggest thing we'd ever made. It was a lot of extra work. I remember working a 14-hour day on my anniversary and my wife not being happy with me. But I also remember how much of like that really solidified our team. Like everyone came together and we really made an incredible thing in a short amount of time. I remember doing a lot of bits and pieces for it and detail work. Um, I remember we also, after that, did a whole bunch of conversion of our digital files that we'd CNC molds out of and turned that into the beginnings of a file we could hand to the visual effects team and be like, here you go, we've already made it.
Wow. Yes, because we see them fall out of their ship and
Yeah.
land on the roof of it. Well, go through the roof of Atlantis, of one of the towers. And you could just take the same asset and give it to them.
And then we'd also like 3D scanned the painted version and we could get the paint material and transfer it onto the model and so you get all the aging in the paint done on there. So I think I actually have one of the photos I sent you was a really tiny guy next to a penny.
I didn't know this existed.
Yeah,
And
that
this holds up completely at that resolution. I mean, how small it is.
oh yeah, he was like 4 or 5 inches tall. But like this is a really good example of like stuff that's never meant for screen, never meant for anything. This is like
Was it a study
the sh-
model? Is that what he is?
yeah, but it's also the shop showing what we can do. Like it's advertising,
Wow.
right? So you can go, hey, like we can do this. And because we worked on other shows occasionally, we actually did something like that for Night at the Museum too, because it was filming up the road where I never actually watched the film, so I don't know how it played out, but
Yeah.
like the Owen Wilson cowboy guy, they made like a little 3-inch scan of him
It's
that
just
they
extraordinary.
had.
There's some amazing stuff that you guys put out. Let me circle back around here and have a look. Lock Watcher, can you tell us any story behind the 1/3 Atlantis Gate built for the shrine and how the scenes were shot. So they took a third of the
Yeah.
Atlantis Gate, or maybe a little bit more,
Yeah.
and because there was no location gate, they never built one. It was why we rarely saw it, because it was always CG. But at some point during production, either season 3, 4, or 5 of Atlantis,
4,
was
I
it
think.
4? So it
'Cause
was
we built
reused
it
for the
for that.
shrine.
Well, what the episode where they're on it and in the flood?
That's the
That's
shrine.
what
That's in season 5.
was it? Okay,
Yep.
that was what we built it for.
Wow.
So it was built for, hey, we actually need them all on top of it, and it's going to be in the water, so we only need to build a third. And then so we built it for that, which was, yeah, because there was no location gate for that show. It was all CG or never shot. And then afterwards, we did actually design it with the intent of, and so it had a stand that you could put like it on its side.
Yep. Yep. And then
So
you
that
could use
when
it in not in force perspective, but in actual shots.
And so they would use that half of it in actual shots and just be like, here's a little bit of the gate as we all walk out.
Wow.
So in episodes filmed after that, I don't know what the chronology of airing is.
You definitely see it in the series finale too. I can think of it right now because there's a gate aboard the hive ship. But that was a great piece. And it's one of those instances where, that Atlantis Gate Room, or the Gatrium as the production like to call it, was used from everything from, the whole other, it was, I mean, the one thing that I can think of is the lunchroom, but I guess they couldn't or didn't want to damage the Stargate that was used in that, because they could have easily converted a section of, like, put up a rig up and just shot on the top of it. But instead, someone was like, no, let's just go ahead and build a separate one that will withstand the hold of these actors.
Yeah, no, but like to take the gate out of the gate room, like it's connected to the room.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We just shoot on top of it and just,
you can
fill in the
flood
space
that room.
around it. Oh, it was a fish. Wasn't it a fish tank? Didn't they use force
Yeah,
perspective
but
on that?
Like to get up to that level, like the ground floor that gate's on is already like 6-8 feet in the air.
Okay.
So like to build a tank into your set and destroy your whole set to do it, it's preposterous.
Okay.
It's just like, no, could you? What's the actual cost to do it? How long would it take?
Right.
How would it affect the rest of our filming?
Yeah.
Because we've only got one of that set. We can't stop filming in there all the time. We need a tank and we can't build a tank in our set. These things are heavy.
I didn't realize that the gate was actually submerged. I thought they used force perspective they sat a fish tank in front of the camera. I know for some shots that they did.
No,
it was under the water.
That one where they're all on it, they're in the water. That was why we built that third of a gate, was because we actually needed to put it in water.
Wow. I didn't know that.
That's
I know
what
that
it was
they used
for.
a fish tank for some pieces.
But
there's behind the scenes footage of it in the DVD. But there's the techniques that they use for all these different shots, probably just to get the camera underneath, because there's debris and muck. Maybe that's what that shot was for. It's just amazing stuff.
And the other thing is like, I don't know how they're going to shoot it.
Yeah.
I'm not at a pay grade that's going to ever find anything out. Like, we just get told what we're building, and it's like, okay, cool. And learned really early on that it's like, you're building this to facilitate a director's whim.
That's it.
Which means if they use it, that was their call on the day. Like, they might get it on set, in the scene, do it once and go, no, this isn't right. We don't need it this way. And it's their call, and it's correct for them to be able to do that. As long as we're getting paid, that's all cool. Because we made the work they asked us to, we should get paid. And that was happening.
Wow.
But also, like, they'd be like, oh, we need the front of this thing. And I'm like, cool, let's build the back anyway, because they'll need the back. And they always did. like that was the other part of it, is like,
anticipating is part of your job.
Anticipating it was a big part of the job. Anticipating what kit to take with the prop for repairing it on set. Like, do we have spare parts? Do we have the right kind of glue and tape and materials to hold this thing together that's held with glue and tape and materials? Spares.
Would you guys rotate in terms of who was dispatched to be there on set with the props, or was that in your time, like, always Kenny, or always, someone in specific?
Well, like, Kenny's the prop master, so he's
Okay.
usually on set.
He's usually
There
there.
are prop people who are separate from us who are the handlers for all the other props and also our props who are always on set. But yes, sometimes there would be builders going with specific props that needed it. Um, because like two of the guys were reasonable puppeteers
Okay.
and and you know actors on their own and have done other things. So it's like um and another person had transitioned from on-set props to building, so he was also familiar with it. So those three guys were the most common to go with props.
That made
Um,
sense then.
so occasionally other people would go if something called for it, but it was usually one of those three guys who were usually going with it.
Wow. That's it, the amount of stuff. Your staff must have been bigger than I realized then in order to pull all of that off, especially for when the two shows were running simultaneously. It's just nuts, man. The the Asgard suits that you guys built for First Contact and the Lost Tribe. When you guys finally built the full size ones and you saw them lit and you saw Bam Bam and his guys inside of them, what
Oh
did you
yeah.
think?
Oh, like that photo of Bam Bam that I have in there was the first picture I saw of it from set all together with someone in it. That was incredible. That was a feeling. And it was also very strange because right then was like when the MCU's Iron Man
Yep.
just came out. So I was doing this and then I went to the theater and saw Iron Man and I'm like, yeah, I think we did pretty good.
Yeah. And in the Lost Tribe, they use a lot of Iron Man style imagery with Michael Shanks and David Hewlett's faces up close, and the CG renderings of the
Yeah,
inside of that
the
thing
HUD.
over the top because Iron Man had just come out,
It
like
literally
6 months
had.
before. Yeah, just
Because
mind
I
blowing.
like we were building that again, in May was when we were assembling it, and then they shot it in June,
Yep,
and then
middle
I
of the
don't know when
season.
Iron Man came out. That let's go find out.
I am kind of surprised. You see these black strips here?
Yep,
Those are zip ties.
yep.
I always thought that those were there for repair. I didn't realize that they were there from the very beginning.
Oh, Iron Man came out
Interesting.
in April or May 2nd, so it would have been right before we built this. So yeah, so I would have been building this and gone and seen Iron Man and been like, yeah, we're doing all right. But then seeing this, that photo was the first time I'd seen someone in the suit moving around. It was just like, oh yeah. So it was
Wow,
like I know some of our guys had gone over to manage those pieces and come back with those photos.
man. Yeah, I would be so wanting to make sure. Part of me would be like, okay, one of us has to get into this thing to make sure that we're right, that nothing is missing. But
I'm trying to
the
remember if
wear
we
and
did any person from the shop got in
yeah,
part. I think we did a couple bits of parts,
okay.
but not whole people.
Okay. But the distress that you've put into it, I thought that most of the distress was made for the versions that were used on Destiny. But looking back on this, a lot of it was created for the first episode. I mean, they're old looking.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very old and worn looking.
Man, oh man. Oh, and you
Uh
had
uh,
and you had the glow
Glow
sticks in
sticks.
in the arms as well.
Yeah. Oh, just trying to
Wow.
get power down there, like
Yeah.
a wire while someone's moving around, like
Yeah.
where you got to have a whole battery pack in there.
Yeah. There's one
Um,
here and then there's one here. So,
yeah. No, my favorite thing about these suits was like James Robbins' original concept art for them. He Someone printed it up at 1:1 scale, so like a big 6 foot tall version of it, and we put it at the end of the hallway where the stairwell is. And so when the whole shop's dark and there's just light at the end of the stairwell, there's a big black silhouette of this guy at the end of it. The number of people that literally spooked was just so much fun. Um,
your
and that stayed the
mannequin has that stayed there until the end?
no, it was just like a printed thing on the wall.
Yeah.
But no, that stayed there the whole time. That was a lot of fun. There was like the the wraith victims, like the desiccated corpses. Those
Hmm.
guys were hanging on the wall in a different spot. Like they
Yeah.
were there the whole
Aurora.
time. Those they were just like
Yeah.
they were old friends.
And we
You
soldier
know?
old friends, yeah, the Aurora stasis pods, with many ancients in them. Or are you talking about like the wraith victims in the with the skeletal like is
Yeah, yeah.
okay, ah, you got those
Like
too.
the really desiccated looking people where they're just sucked dry.
Yeah.
Like those are just old friends. There was a skeleton like an actual like medical skeleton. You have that picture of the my workspace, and like right next to where the camera is, there was a skeleton hanging there the whole time. He was just
Let's see
he's
here.
an old friend.
Let's see if I can find that real quick here.
I don't think he's in any of the shots, but like
Oh, you're saying he's basically there. Yeah,
from where that picture was taken, he's like you could reach out and touch him.
man. Burned Bacchus, Mark. Why don't you have an IMDb profile, and should we add it for you? I certainly can, Mark. Why weren't you credited that by that means?
So one, yeah. What actually happened is like the only real credit any of us actually got was for the Ark of Truth and Continuum films. And what happened is because of what we were starting to build when I started 2 weeks late. And there was another guy who was only there for the first 3 weeks. And so for the Ark of Truth, when they gathered everyone's names, I wasn't there yet. He
Ah,
was there. His name's in the credits, where it should be. And then for Continuum, they gathered a whole new list with my name on it, but used the other one.
son of a bee. I can't do anything about the end credits in the released content, but we can get you an IMDb profile so you can add yourself as uncredited.
I tried uh, twice. No
Well,
one.
we're gonna fix it. We're gonna fix it in this
Great.
one because
About time.
after you finish with this episode and I upload it to IMDb, it generates a profile for you. So you're welcome.
Perfect. Um,
There we go. Then you can just go in and get an IMDb Pro account for 90 free for 30 days and fill it out to your heart's content because you can claim it.
okay.
Yeah, we will do
I'll
that.
figure that out.
Absolutely.
We'll work on that because I got to connect it with a bunch of my other work now
That's
too.
correct. Exactly. You can use it for anything. You can, yeah. IMDb Pro saves my butt doing the show. I couldn't do the show without it.
I'm I'm actually curious if some of my other credits even show up on here.
Because I'm not seeing a profile for you on IMDb. So we should be able to make you a new one and just do it. But Raj wanted to know what was the. Do you have like an easier, hardest prop story in terms of assembly? And is there anything that you have now with the modern technology, or rather the knowledge that you have now than you had then that you would have done differently?
Easiest thing, like those chips that we talked about going missing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
You
hammer
know
them
what you
out.
figure you know what you figure out really early? We're gonna build how many? Let me run a few more,
Yeah.
and I'll put them in a cup on the shelf. Again, you can see a picture of my shelves right next to my workspace. Those are cups full of spares.
Wow.
Yeah, like all those cups at the top, that's all spares. So literally what would happen is someone would show up and they'd be like, "Hey, I ran out of this. Some of them have gone missing or they got damaged or whatever." And I'm like, "Can you make some more?" And I'm like, "Here you go."
Yeah.
That happened about 5 or 6 times, but it was the best because they're like expecting it to take days or be a lot of effort, and I'm like, "No, I got some. Just
Man.
have 'em." That was the most satisfying thing in the world. Like when like that thing where you're like you store that cable away for the future or that piece of wood, and you're like, "Oh, I'll use it later." Like when you get to use it later, it's the best.
Wow.
Um,
Is it because you've had the presence of mind to think ahead and actually
yes,
yeah, do what you
a
need?
lot. A lot of that was learned experience from going, "Hey, we ran out of this. Can you make more?" And I would make more, and it'd be like, "Ah, they've already asked for this one twice. I'll do a bit of an extra run and just we'll make that one work."
For sure. Absolutely. Um, let me see here. TG wants to know, was there a task that you received where you thought, I don't know how we're going to make this, or something that you made where you thought, this turned out so much better than I anticipated, or I knew it was going to be good, but this is great.
I would actually say that I can't think of an example, but the biggest thing I learned working on that show like building film props at that speed and scale was, wow, we're actually really capable of doing something really good really quickly from having no idea how to do it because we had to.
Right.
And when you practice that time and time again, years of experience, it's like, I've never done this before. I've only got one shot. It's got to be done tomorrow. Hey, that turned out great.
Wow.
Um, there's some like little like on the Continuum, um, the freighter ship from the
The
like when it's
Achilles.
crossing over the Atlantic. There were some bits and pieces of that, like handles and little welded bits that I put together. That was one of an example of what I remember of something I made myself. That was like, oh yeah, how do I do these really big welds? And I'm like, oh, I'll just get some putty and try and do it this way. And um, took some plastic rod to make the handles, and I made a molding like um a jig for bending them. And it was like, no, it all worked really cool. I spent way longer on the jig than making the handles, but they were part of the process to make the handles. And once I had the jig working, I could just pump them out in minutes. And so it's like hours and hours, hours designing this jig, and then like build a handle in like 2 minutes. Okay, 20 minutes later, I've got all the handles done. Um, and so that was one of the things that we were doing with the laser cutter a lot was building tooling, jigs, bits and pieces that allowed us to make the other things we were doing. It was really powerful for that kind of stuff. Because it was like, I need a really complicated custom 2D shape that's a rigid structure, and I can make anything.
My buddy Martin McLean, who designed the puddle jumper here,
Yeah.
and number. I mean, that's a legitimate toy, and
Yeah.
the Naquita reactor here, and a few of the other pieces, the touchstone up here. He makes them in CAD files, and so much of what he does, especially for the jumper, in terms of making the wings open and close. What he finds himself doing very often, because this is just who he is, he's a designer by trade and makes manuals as well as the instructions for how to assemble stuff. He finds himself so often over designing things after he comes to a simpler solution. He doesn't
Yeah.
realize he's over designed it because that's often his first idea. And Occam's razor seems to hold true for him, at least. The simplest solution, generally speaking, turns out to be the correct one. And he's like, I spent so much time R&Ding this. I've wasted so much. It's like, no, Martin, you had to go there for your mind in order to get there. That's what was needed. So the simple solution you managed to execute only because you tried the complicated first and it didn't work as easy. There were too many moving parts, so to speak.
Yeah. Keeping it simple, that simple solution was often the only solution.
Ah, okay.
Like sometimes we never had time to R&D stuff. Sometimes things would just be like, no, we got to build a thing. Those suits are a really good example because the universe version has a different helmet.
Correct. They needed to see their faces.
There was a whole concept and a whole design for an actual helmet, and then they cut the time and budget and were like, we need you to shove something together real quick. So they're motorcycle helmets.
Yes, they
And
are.
it was like, I don't even know if the concept ever got out. I don't have a copy of it, but like they looked a little more like the Lost in Space ones, but like they would actually like ratchet over and had a big glass front and everything, but like they look cool. We were gonna build them, and then a lot of time got wasted. I didn't actually understand what was going on, so I can't speak to it, but from my perspective, a lot of time got wasted and the budget shrank radically, and then we had like 2, 3 weeks to get like 6 helmets together. And
Wow.
on Mallozzi's blog, he even talks about it like they got to set and the actors couldn't breathe.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Yep. And
Um,
they have computer fans in them. The one that I have has at least one in the back. So there was some kind of circulation. I imagine that was made last minute.
oh yeah, no, like they went to set and they shot late that night. And there's even I've got a photo of that bit from Water where there's two of our prop guys there with them minding the suits, but the actors couldn't breathe in them because we hadn't even had time to put anyone in them for a period of time to know that because it had been such a rush job. Um, And then the next day they come back and we're literally just drilling holes into them to get some air in, and someone ran to the computer store to grab fans.
Maybe that's
And
why Louis is giving everyone the finger.
Yeah.
Because they're sweating their nuts off. Excuse my
Yeah,
language, folks, but it's probably true.
Those are two of my old friends with them. But yeah, no, they
Yeah, it's a
couldn't breathe in
motorcycle
that.
helmet.
It's a motorcycle helmet.
Just nuts. And it probably would have been probably one of the better solutions to begin with. Or do you think that kit bashing a motorcycle helmet was, at the end of the day, probably more uncomfortable for them instead of designing something from whole cloth?
It was definitely more comfortable than designing something. Anything we design is generally uncomfortable.
Right. Man.
So
it's generally uncomfortable. Let's just face facts.
yeah, like no, like things like chairs. Like, do you know how much work goes into padding a chair and doing upholstery and figuring out what the correct dimensions are for that? People who build chairs know.
Yeah.
I don't. And so it's like, you know, some of the chairs we built, yeah, they're not very comfortable. You don't want to sit in them for 8 hours a day. They're okay for an hour or two, but like, it's not great.
Yeah, when you're really having to like get into them and well, for instance, I don't know if this is the bridge chair or if this is the from the room with the I mean, look at that. It's just
if you scroll up, you'll see it's got the neural interface.
Oh, it's the neural interface. There you go. See, you know what you're talking about. You were there.
Yep.
Wow.
And so that was like some big parts and then a bunch of little 3D printed stuff on it.
Man, and you're designing this for looks. Creature comfort is not, I would think, the first thought.
No. Well, part of it is like we get a concept and it's like, build that.
Yeah.
There's another of my old coworkers in one of these chairs enjoying it. Yeah, that chair was not actually that comfortable to sit in.
Heavy is the head that holds the crown. So
yeah, actually, if you scroll up at the top, you can see the corner of the big CNC machine on the left.
Wow,
there's one of them.
Man, oh man, just wild stuff. I'm having a great time with this. Thank you so much for sharing all of this.
You're welcome. It's fun.
I really want to save the slideshow for a future episode with you and go into some of the more detail. I'm good for another 20 minutes or so, if you can, because I do want to finish off the list of questions here that people have submitted and cover a couple of other things. But this is all fascinating, and the fact that you have it all still, it's all elastic in your brain still, rather than just gone and turned to dust, is fantastic. So please give me more, Mark.
I'm trying, because like, trying to keep everything I remember about this IP is getting harder.
Sure, this is why
it's a bit frustrating.
Absolutely.
Because I've worked on a couple of other IPs where I'm trying to learn everything about what's going on as well, because that's part of the job. And I'm finding I'm like, oh man, I've forgotten more than I remember now.
For sure.
It's just so old.
It happens to the best of us. How old are you?
I am about to turn 43.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not that much older than I am, so I'll be 42 this summer. Matt T, as a prop builder, when you watch a TV episode or a movie, can you watch it like the average Joe, or are you seeing props and thinking, I wonder how they made that, or, oh, I know exactly how they made that, or I would have made that differently? Or can you get swept away in the narrative?
I have a complicated answer to that, because yes, that's a really important question. Pretty quickly on, yeah, that ability to suspend disbelief and enjoy the show, that disappeared from me real quick. And I was constantly like asking those questions, trying to figure those things out. It came back for movies after a couple of years, but like watching scripted live action North American television, I can't do it still. It's just like, I go
into production mode.
I go into production mode way too easy. The last TV show I watched was The Crown, which I really enjoyed. It was beautiful, but like I was enjoying it and I still couldn't stay in it. Animated stuff's way easier, but or things that just are completely fantastic. Or
to the stuff that you got right in front of this is fantastic to me. Like,
yeah, but I mean the stuff that's farther away from what I worked on.
I see.
So like, I never actually watched Game of Thrones, but like that would have been easier for me to do a little bit easier. So yes, I still struggle with that. I don't watch a lot of TV because of that. And that's one of those things where it's like, why do the people who create this stuff not go and enjoy it the same way? It's because their ability to enjoy it is diminished by making it.
For some people, yeah. I made a Choose Your Own Adventure DVD for college.
Yeah.
I wrote and directed it, edited it, the whole thing. And when I go and watch it, I can watch it knowing everything that's going on, but I can also turn that part of my brain off and get largely swept away.
Yes.
And I think maybe one, that's just me, or maybe, I did my job enough that myself can, because it's never a case where I can't get into this. Like George Lucas claims that he can never get into Star Wars, at least the stuff that he's made. It's not been a problem for me. It's probably just a person-to-person thing.
I think it is. And I think also it depends like how much work and time you've invested in building it and how much you care about it. Because like if you are still attached to like, oh, I never quite got that right.
Yeah. Because
Like
you're on a time crunch.
Like that
So
feeling,
severe.
and you see your thing again, you're gonna feel that every time,
Wow.
right? And so it's like when you build a big thing and you care about it, yeah, sometimes you're gonna get attached to it in a way that's like, I understand how actors can't watch themselves, like seeing themselves on a screen, how for some of them that's just like awful, the worst thing in the world. They can't enjoy it because it's like, how often do you like looking at your own face and going, "Oh yeah, that person's cool"? Like, no, like
It's the
it's
career you
awful.
chose.
Yes,
To be
but
part of the process, I guess, not to enjoy it afterwards.
yeah, to be part of the
Yeah.
process and to make something good, not necessarily be part of the intended audience,
That makes a lot of
right?
sense.
So there's things like that where it's like sometimes just you can't have the same attachment to your work the way that the intended viewer, like you don't get to be part of that group anymore. It cost you something to make it.
Yeah. Raj wanted to know, what's the prop that you hated the most?
Oh, the Ark of Lies.
Really? Tell me more.
That
Why?
was that was a lot of building in a very short amount of time from
The Ark of Lies.
some sketch. Again, that was what we were calling it. I don't know if you noticed how fast I came up with that answer.
You didn't take any time at all.
Yeah, that was a ridiculously complex build in a short amount of time. Not only because we had to build it, but we had to build it so it would fall over and open up repeatably when the bit happens at the end.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I remember all of that. The little detailing on there is all sandblast mask that we laser cut, which again is one of those materials that would degrade over time. So anything that was made with it a long time ago, I'd always have to repair and rebuild and repaint.
Wow. Yeah, and you had I don't think if there were radio controllers for this, I didn't get them when we sold them, but we put batteries in, and I couldn't get them to work.
That probably was a radio controller.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you could press them. I felt it. I felt it
Yep.
responding to my touch. And then
I
at the bottom of this was a separate like circuit board that we had this so that we could. Whoops.
what at the bottom of that was a big panel filled with little
Yeah,
eight-sided crystals.
that's what I mean.
Because
Yeah, exactly.
I
Little
made that.
octagons. Yeah,
That,
exactly.
that that was the biggest contribution was they were like, "What's inside it?" And I'm like, "Let me do this."
But when it's hitting the docile in the face, I'm assuming it's just a light thing. You're not using.
Oh
the,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they just pulled that out and put a big light in there.
Exactly right. Yeah, no, it's a whole series. What I meant by circuit board was ancient circuit board. That's what I was saying,
Yeah.
not like a human circuit board. But yeah, see, what you've created is already in my brain as ancient lingo. So in that
Yes,
case,
but that was like, "Hey Mark, can you think up something to go in this? Because no one's designed anything and we need it
yeah,
today."
yeah, and
So
it needs
I
to be
literally,
simple.
yeah, but it was like I made that up on the fly.
Wow.
And so like it's this thing where you're like, "Oh, it's this ancient crystal circuit thing." And I'm like, no one had time to think about that.
Yeah.
and it's what's inside the Ark, which always boggled me as like, this is a really important thing, isn't it?
So you call it the Ark of Lies. Did just the R&D of it just drive you nuts in terms of the stuff that you guys had to come up with?
I
Or what left
I
you having such resentment for it?
I'm trying to remember like the amount of time we didn't have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because again, I think that thing got built in 2 weeks.
And Cooper was it's Cooper's show, let's be honest. So he's the boss and he's saying, "Yeah, let's just do it. That's what
Yeah,
I want. We're not going to cut
I've
corners."
never met Robert Cooper.
Really?
No, we never met most of them. Like I met Joe only afterwards.
Okay.
Like we would never ever like occasionally at rap parties we'd be in the same room as them, but like no,
Yeah.
they had no idea who we were. Um, but Robert Cooper episodes were like because he was writing, producing, and directing.
It's his show.
That directing thing where like usually the directors were separate people. I noticed a trend pretty quickly is that his episodes are always excellent. They're great television. He does excellent work, but they were always the hardest to work on because he was controlling that extra aspect of it, which he got to do, which is cool.
Yeah, he's
But it was like
co-creator.
every time we were doing stuff, it's like, oh, we're doing a Robert Cooper episode. Oh no, we're going to be building all sorts of ridiculous extra things at short times, and he's going to be changing his mind and things. It made great TV, but it was always the hardest. Those were the challenging episodes.
Was your budget allocation larger for those, or was it typically a standard budget allocation for every episode?
I never saw a
You
budget, and
never
I'm
saw
so
that. You
happy
just
I never saw a budget.
okay.
Someone would tell me, "Hey, build this. Here's
Okay.
the due date."
Okay. So you think in terms of not in dollars, but in terms of hours. Were the number of days that you had to create something um, ex- uh, malleable for when you had an upcoming episode for him, or was that all okay? People, this is what's coming. This is the amount of time that we have. Was it a little bit elastic, or was it all blocks for of equidistant amounts of time for every single episode?
I, I need to stress this. I was part of a team. I was the young new guy on this team. I was surrounded by experts who were all incredible people.
Okay.
I learned a lot from them. I got good at a couple things, but like the people managing that, like I would not be part of those meetings and I shouldn't have been part of those meetings. So would due dates change based on like, oh, like what is this thing and we need it? Maybe we can rework the schedule. And again, those meetings are happening down at the bridge. Gord and Kenny are involved in that, but like, no, I'm never dealing with that. I'm just going, sometimes due dates would change on me and that's okay.
Yep.
Like I'm getting paid to do the work. It's fine.
That's exactly right.
Let go.
Let go. I love it.
Because sticking on it would never lead anywhere good, right? So like if something big was taking too long, maybe like with the suits, those took a long time. I think they might have worked the schedule around that, but I can't even remember. I don't know. So I was never involved in a discussion like that, unless they were asking me for an estimate of what was actually going on.
Mm-hmm. Let's see how OCD you got. Maslam wanted to know, did you ever go back and rebuild or improve in some way a prop, even though it may not be used again, just in case, or to fix something that was bugging you? Now we know when you had a little bit of time to kill, you may have modified a furling here and there, but I'm curious outside of that, if anything ever was like, this is gnawing at me. I know I can make this a little bit better just for my own edification.
Always wanted to.
Yeah.
Whenever a prop would come back to us, like for me to even have access to it, it's because someone intentionally was sending it to the shop for repair or like someone had already made that decision. I could never get it into my hands again willingly.
I see. Okay.
Like I never had a key to the cage in our big room there. The half of it was caged that was just storage. I could never get in there. Why would I need to go in there? That's just for storage. So no, I never had the agency to make that decision unless the decision to do something with it was already there for me. Would I repair old things? Would I make them better when I could? The key there is actually consistency.
Mm-hmm.
It has to look like the old version. So to make it different would actually be bad. Do I want to try and figure out how to make something better or like more resilient or out of a material that's not going to degrade or something like that? Oh, always. Like we're always trying to do that. But there's a trade-off with a ridiculous old process that is the way we figured it out once, and we're doing that every time. Like the Zat gun, the actual mechanical one that opened and closed.
Yep.
Every time that was used, the little flexible material that covers the joints, every time, like every single day, like they'd pull it out because they hadn't shot with it in 2 months. We'd strip it off and put a new one on because it would wear very quickly.
It was the consistency of electrical tape. It only had so many movements in it, where that was it. After a little bit, it was just not possible.
Yeah, it was a medical like latex like material.
Hmm.
But it was just like, no. And then the material was the right color, but like, no, it doesn't last. So you could shoot with it for a day or two, and then you'd have to go do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Because these things aren't real in many cases.
No.
They're as
And
real as they need to be for as long as the shot needs to take, and then
yep,
they go into oblivion.
yep.
So,
If something's made of straw and mud and wax and it holds together for your shot, that's enough.
yeah. There's a Toker tunnel for you.
Yeah. Like it just if it works, it works. And
Yeah.
you move on and you make the rest of your show.
That's it. That's it.
Or, or
Lockwatcher wants to know, now that 3D printing is mainstream and so much cheaper, how do you think this is evolving prop building?
lot more 3D sculpting going on.
Yeah.
A lot more 3D modeling, a lot more um concept in 3D translating straight into building and then doing the complex finishing because 3D printing still doesn't really make a nice finish.
Yeah. Even
It's
still,
getting better,
there's a lot of work that has to be done afterwards.
but like I saw it when it was at the start. It was like, oh no, we're going to be because we were already doing a lot of 3D modeling for CNC and the laser cutting, and so the 3D printing was just a natural extension of that, where we were like, yeah, it's going this way. We're doing this. Everyone's going to be doing this soon.
Wow.
It felt inevitable. Like
Yeah.
these tools were like once you got them and once you started using them, we're like, oh no, we're going to be doing this all the time. This is great. This is the way we should be doing stuff. Let's go make more of it.
Martin Wood would tell us of stories where he would go to trade shows. I don't know who with, but he would see things like the CNC machine and be like, all right, let's order one. And then you guys would have it. And it's like, okay, see what you can do with it. You have to start somewhere. And a lot of times
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to be busting your humps with the learning curve.
And again, like my experience with the laser cutter was that same thing where no, we had no idea what we were going to do with this. Someone just ordered one because I thought it might be neat. And it was like $40,000 just on a whim on a tool that was probably going to pay for itself and absolutely paid for itself orders of magnitude over in how much work we got out of it. There was a thing on the Atlantis set where there's these walls and they've got these little slits of light coming through and there's these little chevron shaped acrylic pieces about this big. And it would take 3 carpenters days to produce 200 of them.
Yeah.
Like 3 people working hard full time, bandsawing and polishing and everything. I could hit a button
Let me see here.
and keep it keep the machine going for 3 days and make thousands. Like it was so easy.
Let's see here. Nope. I'm not shopping for wall sconces. Thank you, everyone. There they are. Yeah.
Yeah, those things.
Yeah, acrylic chiclets. We called them chiclets. I don't know if production came up with that term or, but yeah,
Maybe.
these are the ones on the left here. We had for season 5 for Janice's lab, and then the ones on the right here were made for season 1. And these are just. Can I go closer? I can't. Thank you, Pinterest. Are just these come off on the top, on the front. And everything wired through the back of them are extension cords, regular home extension cords plugged into a regular office power strip at the bottom.
Yep.
And that was it.
Yep.
So they're portable. They could take them off and replace them easily rather than just cut the cord and have to rebuild another one.
Yeah.
The stuff that they.
But it was one of those things where it was like, no, we can make this way faster with this machine, and it paid for itself so quickly with that stuff.
Wow. Yeah, Bridget McGuire, I quote, "We could have made stuff for NASA."
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
no, we were making really cool stuff. It's prototype, so it's all still
Hmm.
like there's aspects of like testing that don't go involved aren't involved into whether our stuff's any good. But like, no, we were building cool stuff real fast,
Man,
and
I
the quality was quite high.
immensely high. I'm still amazed by this. We had a couple, we had a whole series, and you had stunt versions of these, which were rubber. I was going to
Yeah.
say plastic, but I mean this is so heavy. But like the piece here on a couple of them started coming undone. I don't know what glue was used to install these
Oh,
here, but these are hold. This one's held on really good. But like one or two of them just started fraying a little bit.
I'm not sure whether those were glue or whether it was double-sided tape, like actually applied onto the foam and laser cut with the tape on it and then
Ah,
stuck right on.
okay. So in this case, it could hold long term. I'm keeping an eye on some stuff. My Wraith mask for my drone downstairs in my living room. As time passes, the mask is shriveling and dying. Um,
Latex doesn't last.
Latex does not last. The Asgard puppets.
Yeah.
I told whoever it was that bought this thing, you must preserve this thing. He's like, oh, yeah, yeah, I've got a nitrogen case. I'm like, you must preserve him. I got a photo of him a couple of years ago. He's completely destroyed. He's
We
turned into a raisin.
so I was the one to actually glue the little bits on it for the that last
Oh,
episode
for the
with the
veneer piece. So here
yeah,
and here. Yep.
yeah.
And we sold
And
him as is.
and that decision was made at a pretty high level of no, this puppet's degrading. This is the last time we're going to shoot him. And I'm like, if I do this, it's permanent. We're all sure. And
Okay.
I was double and triple checking it because it was like, no, we're using super glue on this. It's good.
Yeah.
When we pull it off, we're going to rip out the chunk of skin with it.
Yeah.
So,
They never pulled it out.
well, they couldn't. And but it was like, are we certain we're doing this? Yeah, that
Yeah.
stuff. I applied those.
Wow.
Um,
Oh, so this actually came off pretty easily. This was just like some kind of gentle adhesive, but this did not come off.
yeah, no. And it was like when we put this on, it's not coming off.
That's it.
It's never coming off. And he's go but they already knew he was degrading,
Yeah.
which was why they were like, no, we're certain this is the last time we're shooting with
And
it.
the species is dead.
Yeah, but it was one of those things where it was like, no, we know the puppet's actually degrading,
Oh,
the
I see.
physical
With this
object.
puppet, yes, got
Yeah,
it. Well, case in point, this was the old one that we sold in the second live option, and ugh, that resolution is so low. But like his face is gone, And this
yeah.
was the one that was built for season 3, for an episode called Fair Game, and he still has the webbed feet. He may have actually been in the 5th race. I know he wasn't used in Thor's chariot because that was just a half puppet that started here. But even his neck and everything, it's silicone, and it's oxygen wears it away.
Yep.
So it's corrosive.
It's the nature of some of these materials where they're not designed to last. They're not stone.
Right. And all of it will eventually turn back into stardust one day or another. I guess, when our sun, wipes us all out one day. So
We're all
it's
made
here
of
for
star stuff.
that's it. So it's here for a little while, and we take the pictures with us and the memories that we got. And there are some good ones because you made an amazing amount of work, Mark, amazing amount of stuff over the years, Mark. And I
We
really
did.
thank you for spending the time with me and doing this. We have a
You're welcome.
slideshow that we couldn't get to, so we're going to have you back later this season.
Cool.
So, any thoughts before we wrap up?
It's weird reliving some of these thoughts. Like some of the things you're showing me, I'm like, I haven't even thought about this in sometimes almost 20 years.
But a lot of it's
Um,
still in there.
it's still clacking around in there. It's still so much fun. It, this was not a job I expected to be doing, but as soon as I was there, I'm like, no, this is amazing. This is so much fun. Let's ride this out for as long as I can. It was awesome. I had a great time.
Were you a Stargate fan before this?
Yes. I had watched the show like off and on bits and pieces here and there, and then the I started the job in like late winter, spring,
Yep.
and the summer before, a close friend of mine had lent me the first 4 seasons. As I was looking for work, I had time to, so I watched the
Atlantis.
first, no, the first 4 seasons of SG-1.
SG-1.
So I actually watched them in order the year before this happened,
You
and
knew
was
your
like,
stuff.
I knew a lot of stuff. I didn't know all my stuff,
Got it.
but very quickly working with the team, everyone figured out that I knew way more than everyone about what the actual show was because I'd seen enough of it. And I like this kind of stuff where I like learning about a thing and knowing a lot more about it. So I quickly became the resource for, hey, we need a continuity check on something or what this old thing looked like. So like going to Gate World and finding old screen grabs of episodes and hunting stuff down. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That work is really important and invaluable for making, like, because I've done this with BattleTech, I've done this with Fallout, where these wikis and all this information, when it's trustworthy, can become a reliable resource for even the people making it, who
Right.
still also have to make sure that it's a reliable resource. So that reliability is really important. Um, so no, I think Atlantis season 2 is the only season I never watched
Okay.
because I read a summary of what happened. I looked through pictures of what happened. I'm like, I should really get around to watching Grace Under Pressure, but the rest of it looks skippable.
So you've still
I
not
didn't,
seen it?
no,
Okay.
I found Atlantis to be less my thing.
It's more action oriented. It's less Indiana Jones adventure in that way. It's very Rodney do this, Rodney do that. Rodney complains, Rodney solves the problem, they go home.
By the end, I was calling it the Rodney McKay show because he was doing all the work.
Oh, I think we could throw I have all the transcripts saved into a document for each show. And I'm sure I could throw the Atlantis document into ChatGPT, and the percentage of Rodney dialogue would probably exceed 50% or be near enough to it. So
Yeah,
in terms of total words.
but he was literally the hero of the show, making everything happen, and
Yeah.
everyone else is just kind of like escorting him, like functionally, like all
It's
of
a
the
fair
action,
argument.
all of the action is just to get Rodney where he needs to be, in
Yeah.
the same way that like Samantha Carter was doing that kind of work, but just like more concentrated.
It's a fair argument. Yeah, indeed, for sure.
And that was the part of the show I was like, no, this guy's doing all the work.
I think Hewlett would agree with you in terms of the dialogue. So he's very proud of that. And
He
not
was
every
doing all the
actor
work.
could pull that off. Not
It's
every
hard.
actor could do that day in and day out. We saw him when they were filming an episode of season 2 called Trinity. We saw him on set, and he had no voice. And I go back and watch that episode, and he has a voice, and it's like, how is he pulling this off? You know, he didn't have one when we were there talking to him. I guess he just made it happen. So
It sometimes you like some part of acting is like it's really hard work
yep.
in a very short
Sometimes
amount
it's
of
hard
time,
work.
and then there's huge gaps of doing nothing.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, they tell you to run, 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 run. Okay, we're here. Okay, now wait for 5 hours. Yeah, but we just ran all this way. Yeah, well,
Hurry
things
up and
change.
wait.
Hurry up and wait.
That's what being on set is like all the time because there's it's like baseball. There's one or two people doing a whole bunch of work that's really important, and everyone else is standing around being ready.
Yep. Yep. Last question for you. Kathy's called. Did you complete any games or have any published? My son just got his associates in programming and is working independently on his own game.
I've been working in games for the last 10 years.
Okay.
I spent a bunch of time working on MechWarrior Online and MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries, and that's a bunch of my work from those games.
Yep.
And more recently, I'm working on Fallout 76.
Fallout 76. Awesome. Are
So
you
this
liking
means
what you're seeing?
this is me looking at my old work, so that's complicated.
Yeah. It's a fair point.
So I'm making power armor in another sci-fi IP that I loved as a teenager because apparently I've done this 3 times now and I have a type.
Like mechs. Yeah.
Yeah, I like giant robots. They're a good time.
I have an Ed 209 2 rooms over.
Okay.
He's this tall. He's a toy.
Yeah.
But he looks accurate. So, yeah, cool stuff, man. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk, and I'm looking forward to having you back.
You're welcome. This has been fun. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm going to wrap up the show on this side. Thank you, Mark. Mark Nicholson, everyone, prop builder for Stargate SG-1, Atlantis Universe, the Ark of Truth, and Continuum. He has graciously assembled, you saw a little bit of it, a complete archive slideshow. And once we started talking a little bit beforehand, I was like, I think we've got another show in us here. Much like I did recently with Peter Budnaris. We had to end up splitting it into two pieces because there was just so much information. You don't know how much information has survived in the person after a period of time. And a lot of it is because they only cared about it so much in terms of while they needed it. And you can tell the people who were really invested in it because it's still with them in a lot of cases. And you can tell the people who were invested in it and just who have bad memories and it just doesn't stick with them anymore. And they're so apologetic about that. But huge thanks to Mark for making this possible and providing so much detail and answering so many of my questions that I've had over a number of years of seeing some of this stuff, especially at PropWorks and assembling it. And it's like, okay, why was that done that way? And I'm actually going to go through my catalogs here and pull some more stuff out from those seasons where I knew he was there and ask him, Mark, why? So that's what I've got for you. I'm David Reed for Dial the Gate. If you enjoy the show and you want to see more content like this, click the like button. It does make a difference with the show and will continue to help us grow our audience. Please also consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend. And if you want to get notified about future episodes, click subscribe. And clips from this live stream will be released over the course of the next few weeks on both the Dial the Gate and GateWorld.net YouTube channels. DialTheGate.com has the complete information for all of the upcoming episodes. I've got a couple of great guests that are rattling around right now that we're trying to get confirmed, and then their names will appear. Very excited about a couple of them. Thanks to my producers, Anthony, Kevin, and Linda, my moderators, Anthony, Jeremy, Kevin, Lockwatcher, Marcia, Raj, and Jacob, and Frederick Marcoux over at Concepts Web, keeping DialTheGate.com up and running. My tremendous thanks to all of you. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the other side. All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Let me, my AT&T guy is here, so I normally would sit around afterwards and talk, but I'm going to have to go, so